The Puerto Ricans forming the ranks of the gallant 65th Infantry on the battlefields of Korea are writing a brilliant record of achievement in battle, and I am proud indeed to have them in this command. I wish that we might have many more like them. In 1908, the 65th Infantry became part of the U.S. Army, becoming the largest and longest segregated Latino American military unit in U.S. history. However, when they began engaging in U.S. military affairs, they were never allowed to fight in the front line and were used more as an aid to other regiments. Soldiers of the 65th had been glorified in the U.S. Army for 10 years until the Korean War broke out in 1950. The Korean War began as a result of the invasion of South Korea by Communist North Korea. The presence of the Borinqueneers was called upon to fight on the front line. As the war progressed, the 65th Infantry was sent to dangerous missions requiring them to fight in the front line of battle. Many died during action, while others have died throughout the years without being recognized as military heroes. Their commitment was questioned when they failed to accomplish their mission in Jackson Heights, leading to the biggest court-martial in the Korean War. The members of the 65th Infantry were always recognized for their bravery. In one incident on November 27, 1950, units all along the front line were attacked and being defeated by Chinese troops. The Borinqueneers became isolated, outgunned and outnumbered at Chosin Reservoir, which is where they were cut off, along with the soldiers from U.S. 1st Marine Division and other British and Korean soldiers from different divisions. All the soldiers needed to reach Hunman. In order to make the mission successful, the 65th Infantry bravely fought off numerous attacks, causing many casualties in order to open the path for other soldiers. The Puerto Rican soldiers showed valor by risking their lives to save the 30,000 troops that got cut off at Chosin Reservoir. This was one of the most important missions the regiment was ever assigned.
Cuando este jíbaro llegó y llegamos a San Francisco, de regreso a Corea, además de las galletas, las donas, y habían hasta besos, porque la esposa de los americanos, que nosotros sacamos, recubrimos la retirada, nos daban besos, nos abrazaban. You wouldn't care, you are the best soldier in the United States. Okay, yo recuerdo eso muy bien.
As the battle progressed, the soldiers were given the option to surrender by Colonel William Harris, who before taking command of the 65th Infantry seemed to be outraged by the assignment. Later, Harris noticed all their qualities. He respected the soldiers, earning their admiration. When given the option to surrender, the soldiers refused to cease in order to make their commander proud and bring honor to their motto, which was Honor et Fidelitas, which is Latin for honor and fidelity. By February of 1952, the regiment had fallen under a new commander's orders. Under the new command of Colonel Juan Cesar Cordero Davila, some units of the 65th failed to meet their military duties, tarnishing the reputation of the unit as a whole. The new commander was in charge when the arduous mission at Outpost took place. In the mountains of North Korea, under the constant firing of the enemy, the regiment was not prepared for the Chinese. They were outnumbered and eventually the post was lost. During that time, 542 casualties were recorded and limbs were scattered everywhere. As a result of the failure at Outpost Kelly, the regiment was placed under the command of Colonel Chester DeGarver. The soldiers of the 65th had always felt very comfortable with their commanders. As DeGarver took command, he executed disciplinary changes that he thought would improve their work ethic. The Borinqueneers were stripped of their name, ordered to paint over the title Borinqueneers on their military vehicles, deprived of rice and beans in their food rations, and commanded to shave their mustaches until they could prove they were army men. A mustache was a symbol of manhood for these men, and shaving them was dishonorable. The soldiers were even ordered to wear signs that read, "I am a coward." The officers blamed the troops for all mistakes made since Outpost Kelly, and even denied them showers as punishment. Outpost Kelly resulted in a deplorable and bloody outcome and the demoralization of the troops. Soon after the events that occurred in Outpost Kelly, the Borinqueneers were sent back to the front line in Jackson Heights, which was considered a suicide mission. The regiment was told they would replace other troops at the designated post, but once they arrived, there was no one to replace. The regiment was situated in a dangerous position. It was an open hill with no coverage, exposing the soldiers to the enemy. Communication was a challenge, due to the fact that some of the new soldiers didn't understand English and couldn't understand orders. The commanding officers failed in their responsibility to ensure that all active troops receiving orders understood their objective and mission. Surrounded and outnumbered with no medical support, the soldiers couldn't protect their post. When ordered to fight, 45 soldiers refused and eventually got disarmed and arrested. New orders arose for the Borinqueneers to take over the hill once again, yet they didn't manage to succeed their mission. In Jackson Heights, some members of the 65th failed to perform their military responsibilities. For that reason, in December of 1954, 162 soldiers from the Puerto Rican Regiment were arrested for acts of insubordination at Jackson Heights. The soldiers failed to follow military orders and justified their acts by claiming they lacked training along with poor leadership. They also stated that due to racial prejudice, they were sent to suicide missions with no clear objective. Some troops were unaware of what was actually happening, while others barely even knew what a court-martial was.
Y fuimos a Jackson High al cejo, de momento vino Harvard, dieron la orden a retirada y eso fue lo que pasó. ¿Quién la dio? No se sabe. Lo que había en un ajuste tremendo, ahí no se sabía lo que estaba pasando.
It is also said the soldiers did not have proper representation throughout the proceedings. Findings of an Army Board of Review directed to Company F dated back to August 20, 1953, reveals that the soldiers' lawyers stated that the effectiveness of counsel at the trial level was so deficient as to deny the several accused a fair trial and military due process. Direct statements from the soldiers saying they were persuaded not to go back up to Jackson Heights by Sergeant Valentin, who was in charge of Company F, were omitted by their defense counsel. The statement made by the soldiers, quoting Sergeant Valentin, says, "Don't go back up there. Listen to me and you won't get into any trouble. I know because I have been in the Army for 10 years. I am the father of 6 children and I want to go back to Puerto Rico to see them. If you go up that hill, may God cause a mortar shot to kill you all." If what these soldiers state is true, this would mean that their defense counsel was not looking out for their interests and their right to be represented by counsel was denied. Most of the soldiers submitted to the court-martial did not testify in their own defense at the trials. Neither Colonel Betances, the battalion commander, nor Sergeant Valentin, the highest non-commissioned officer present at the incident, was ever called as witnesses. Colonel Betances later stated, "The funny thing is that I arrested Guzman. I arrested 40 soldiers in no man's land, and I wasn't called to the court-martial. I was not. Why? Because I was going to explain the situation. They didn't call me, and they found them guilty." The justice system of the U.S. Army failed to take into consideration the written statements made by the soldiers, which stated that Sergeant Valentin had told them that if they decided to return to the hill, he would not go up with them. The true culprit of this dishonorable act was Sergeant Valentin, and he was never held accountable for his mistake. 91 soldiers were found guilty and sentenced to terms of 1 to 18 years of hard labor. As a result, the national movement, along with negotiations between the United States and Puerto Rico, led to the pardoning of all 91 soldiers. It was recognized that a language barrier and poor leadership were the main factors responsible for the regiment's failure. Even though their commitment was questioned during the court-martial, the 65th Infantry fought courageously in battle. From 4,500 soldiers that started off, only some 200 men ended up being accounted for. It was found that larger quantities of Puerto Rican soldiers were killed than that of American soldiers. In fact, 1 out of every 42 men found dead was Puerto Rican. These men were illustrious for their combative spirit and valor. Recognition from Congress for these men has been requested by the Congressional Gold Medal Alliance for many years. Resident Commissioner Pedro Pierluisi is pursuing a bill in Congress to award the gold medal to the 65th Infantry. The Korean government is in full support of this bill. In March 2014, President Obama awarded the Medal of Honor to one member of the 65th Infantry who fought in the Korean War. On March 18, Master Sergeant Juan E. Negron's daughter received her father's Medal of Honor on behalf of his courageous actions taken on the battlefields of Korea. Mr. Negron passed away in 1996 and became the first member of the 65th Infantry Regiment to receive this award. Throughout the history of the 65th Infantry, the regiment demonstrated their bravery in battle and quickly recovered their reputation that had been tarnished at Jackson Heights because of their failure to uphold their responsibilities as soldiers. The incident in Jackson Heights demonstrated the problems that cultural misunderstandings can create, affecting both the rights and responsibilities of both the U.S. Army and the soldiers of the 65th.